There we
Perfect.
go. Love it when it
Yeah.
works. Right. Let's
All
go.
right.
Let's go.
Yeah, and then I'll just do a quick self-introduction for those who didn't catch last week's session. And that recording is now live on YouTube. So maybe Alex or Richard, you could send the link in this chat as well, so people can have that later. So a bit about myself. I'm an current MBA candidate at the Saïd Business School here at Oxford. I founded and co-chair the blockchain club at the business school, which is actually supported by an Avi Grant DAO. And I'm also a member of Oxford DAO, which is a decentralized and primarily student-run DAO for blockchain education here in the Oxford ecosystem. And for that work, we're also supported by a very generous grant from EduDAO. And then there's my actual day job, which I also talked a little bit about last time, which is the Chief Operations Officer of T2 or T2 World. And we are a decentralized read-to-earn publishing platform. So I've got this illustration here, which I really like. Because when I tell the story of how I got into Web3, how I got into the metaverse, I'm always proud to say that it started in the arts, which is to say, I used to work at the Vancouver Biennale, which is a public art exhibition, biannual exhibition in Vancouver. And I worked on a very cool art piece by Jessica Angel, who is the East Denver art steward. So she runs all the art initiatives over there. And that piece, which is called Voxelbridge, is still on an exhibition in Vancouver, by the way. So if you are visiting that side of the pond anytime soon, please do give it a go. It's a lot of fun. And through that project, that was kind of where my curiosity for blockchain grew exponentially, I would say. And I started learning on my own outside of that project scope. And that, of course, continues to this day. You don't really quite stop in this space, just because the space both grows horizontally and vertically very, very rapidly. And then when, I guess last year, when the metaverse became such a buzzword, I started looking at the ecosystem in a much more holistic through a much more holistic lens. And you can probably tell, though, I still definitely have very much a strong bias for the decentralized layer of that metaverse. And I'll circle back to what that means in a little bit. And you can see that all my, personal and professional interests kind of get mixed up in this can of soup here. And I chose this illustration in particular. So this is a piece of crypto art by the artist that goes by the name of Gemtech. It's obviously a tribute to Andy Warhol, but also, so that plays into my arts background, but also, with the crypto twist, and in particular, a polka dot twist, which is, it's personal meaning for me in that it was the first ecosystem that I felt, very included in. And so I kind of went really deep in polka dot. I'm also a polka dot ambassador. So that means if you have any questions about the ecosystem, you can feel free to connect with me, and I can walk you through that. So let's move into what we're talking about today.
Wonderful. I'll just hop in a quick second, Sammy. I won't bother you for long, I promise. But
Yeah.
so I'm going to put up that part one in a moment from YouTube. But while you're doing these intros here, make sure you go over to Eventbrite. We've got another session, so part sort of 3 of the 3 here with a different guest speaker next time. And we're asking the question about NFTs, fad or future, are they here to stay? So we'll be touching on NFTs today, but we're going to be diving deeper. 2-hour session next Tuesday, no cost, all paid for by the UK government in advance. Make sure you just go ahead, click that now. It'll take you 10 seconds, done. Then you can get back and focus fully on Sammy. So we'll see you next week. Thanks, Sammy.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah. Personally, also really looking forward to that workshop at Blending next week. Really good end to the series. And so today we'll first start just by revisiting that system that I mapped out last week with everybody. And then how do you find your vertical within that system? So whether it's an industry vertical or a layer vertical, how do you see yourself fitting in? And then finding your specific role, how you want your day to look like, how you want your work, your professional, your career and your life to look like. And then identify your list of options, and then to build that knowledge network and the people's network to help you secure those opportunities that you probably at this stage are not even aware that are possible. So, and for me, so the interesting thing is I was thinking about what to put on this number 4 here, because Usually I'll say the framework that I use is a very famous business case, a business school framework, which talks about careers or job searches. But I obviously, because we have people here interested in business opportunities, startup opportunities, it is a little bit different, so adapted that. And also employment in this, especially the decentralized metaverse, is going to look quite different. So obviously you have your traditional corporate employers, but you also have DAOs or ecosystem communities if you want to partially or fully embrace the open economy as a autonomous individual. And I think when you talk about your role, again, that's closely related to what you want your life to look like as well. So what is your daily schedule? How do you split your day? Do you have dependents whose schedules that you need to consider? Where do you live and how do you commute? All of those personal circumstances that are unique to all the individuals will determine how you want to optimize that role, using the framework that we'll be covering today. So we're back to this lovely chart by John Radoff. So you want to start by identifying what layer you want to work in. And of course, everything that, all the little pieces of, oh, you should, or you must, or, advise or tips, pointers that I'm going to be sharing, obviously very flexible, again, depending on your circumstances. And it's totally fair to, explore, dip your toes a little bit in a few, probably different areas at a time, and then narrow it down from there, depending on your experience and the feedback that you're getting. So here are the 7 layers of the metaverse. We won't go through it again, but if you want the details, make sure to check out last week's session. And then I want to talk about how those 5 layers intersect with these 5 industry, or the 7 layers intersect with these 5 industries. And these are the first 5 industries to transform themselves through the metaverse. And the first 2 being gaming and media entertainment, which is where really the metaverse, or rather, our current understanding of it, gain critical mass. And that's not a coincidence, just because obviously these industries are quick to adapt, always on the cutting edge, and very, very welcoming to experimentation, so to speak. And then e-commerce and retail. So you see major brands, fashion retailers coming in, fashion shows in the metaverse, etc. Manufacturing.
So, I mean, do you see any coincidence between the kind of companies? So not the big ones, we know what big tech does, but what about the kind of agile scale-up companies? What are the attributes that leadership has that mean that they are willing to, really rotate on a pinhead and see something like this and just dive in? What do they have in common? Have you noticed any commonalities?
That's a really good question. I'd say that it would be part of their genetics. So when I say genetics, it means that as a business, as an organization, what are their roots and where do they come from, right? So when they built, however large they may be today, how did they build that? And what was kind of the guiding star to how they got to where they are today is quite a big determinant in how quickly they adapted to all of this. For example,
because you could have the bright shiny object syndrome, can't you? Everything looks exciting and fancy, but you can also miss out if you think everything's a fad.
Yeah, but from a strategic point of view, I think that businesses that the thing is, not a whole lot of this stuff is new. I mean, it's obviously brand new in terms that the technology enables you to do things you could not do before. But technology itself, I remember one of the surprise use cases in my experience was the Royal Shakespeare Company. They adapted very quickly during the pandemic, shifting entirely to virtual experiences, interactive virtual experiences, and also 3D experiences. And they were able to quickly do that because creation, innovation, that's in their genes, right? And I recall, I cannot remember her name. I wish I did, but her quote, she's the, I believe the executive director of the RSC, and she was, I recall her saying, and this really resonated with me, it's, using, virtual reality, using online streaming, these technologies are the same to theater as audio and video, right? what we would consider part of our daily lives now. But just even amplified audio is new to theater in terms of technology, and this is just all of the infrastructure that supports the metaverse. That's just another technology that to them is the same as amplified audio, which I thought was super cool. So yeah, a little bit of perspective there about where these companies may come from.
Thanks, that's great.
Yeah. And then manufacturing, architecture, and engineering, again, two industries that really benefit and could do really well and completely transform themselves through this lens. So here again, the layers that intersect with the different industry verticals, and we're going to pick out some of them. And I think going into identifying your verticals, you need to keep both the industry and the layer within your sites, because I, for example, pivoted slightly between industries. I was in between the arts and the media and entertainment, and even was thinking about from as an investor point of view, as a business opportunity point of view, private equity or venture capital in particular. But at the end of the day, it's again, actually, Richard, you had a really good question that brought out that whole thing about the guiding star of corporations, of organizations. I think that applies also on an individual level. I was constantly asking myself when I was looking for my niche within these different intersections, what it was that that really I really needed and what it was that I wanted. And my guiding star was why I live life, what I'm looking for in life. So it's a very big question, but it's really important to have that. And I do think I touch on a little bit later in the process. So here it is again, the metaverse market map for kind of a holistic view on what's possible. And then I really want to, so we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time on this last week, so I really wanted to come back to this because corporate life, which is to say the non-decentralized parts, the professional opportunities that may come up for you in the metaverse are not going to deviate too far from what you're already familiar with. So I want to dive into this new part, which is the decentralized opportunities out there. So again, DAOs are decentralized autonomous organizations that organize resources around essential business logic. I say business in quotation marks because it's not necessarily for profit. It could very well be nonprofit. And DAOs are really just a better equilibrium for the internet age because the corporate way of organizing resources is a little bit outdated and doesn't really apply to the internet economies.
We just hop back to the group a second, Sammy, give your voice a little rest for a moment, although I'm gonna have to jump in the car in a second. So where's everybody at so far? Not today, but in your careers and your business. So I want to jump on the chat, I'll put your microphone on. What have you done so far? What have you experimented with? Patricia, you mentioned about healthcare. Is that something you've looked into? I see there's loads in the press actually the last couple of weeks about setting up these virtual clinics and so on, and how to treat people differently, particularly with COVID. Looking for some interaction here. I'm going to call on people as well in a second. I see Claire's here. Claire, what are you working on? Have you started doing things in the metaverse? Are you playing around with some things? Patricia.
Thanks for coming here.
Okay, this is Patricia. Sorry, I don't have my camera on.
No problem at all.
Hi, Patricia.
So I'm interested in healthcare because actually 2 weeks ago, I went to the Scottish Artificial Intelligence Summit. And there were people actually among the exhibitors, there were people advertising a DAO around, a virtual hospital, especially in the area of therapies. And for example, we already know there is a little bit old, maybe 5 years old, that, for example, children with burns, third degree, burns, they have been treated using VR. So for example, when they change the bandage, they mimic, like they are in a game, and they send them like snowballs that they need to basically, they need to avoid to be hit by. And that actually makes a difference in the brain, because they are so busy that they feel less pain. So
Wow.
there are already, especially with VR, for example, also they have used VR for people with Alzheimer. They really replay like music and memories, so they are happier, let's say, actually healthcare is an area I'm very, very interested.
I love that, but it scares me, and I won't derail Sammy, I promise. But that, you could take somebody back with Alzheimer's to the point in their memory that they physically remember, and you could connect their outside world with their inside world. But we into a whole load of ethics at that point. But it's becoming feasible to do crazy things like that. That who knows, right? Claire, were you going to say something?
Sorry, who?
Claire popped up to the top of the list. And I don't know if that's because she unmuted for a second.
Claire is, do you want to say hi, Claire? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yes, your microphone. Just listening. Okay, wonderful. Just checking. Cool. Sammy, back with you.
Yeah, great. Let's see. So I wanted to walk a little bit through the different DAOs and really help people understand where we are in terms of how far DAOs have progressed and what kind of functionalities they are already beginning to replace in terms of, in comparison to traditional or corporations or institutions. So here on the left, let me bring that back. Got Liz handy pointer. Oopsie. So on the left corner here, we've got operating systems. So these are the basic tools to help DAOs operate. So they kind of take out a little bit of the what will be typically the accounting or legal services that help DAOs run. Help deploy smart contracts, upgrade the or update proposals, how they govern themselves, etc. And then here you have protocol DAOs that are, it's here we have mostly DeFi protocols. So they help DAOs with, because our DAOs operate through their either their own tokens or other tokens, which need support to facilitate the different financial derivatives or basic functions, like for example Uniswap supports the exchange of different tokens. And then you have investment DAOs, and I want to single out Komarevi, which is a fantastic collective led by women, either with a goal to advise and invest on women-led startups, and backed by also really cool allies as well. And then under Grants DAO, I love talking about Aave DAO or Aave Grants DAO, just because they are the primary funder for the Business School Blockchain Club here, which was a really pleasant experience dealing with them and seeing how they want to support education in our student group. And then collector DAOs, I love talking about Pleasure DAO. It's what I like to see them as a culture driver, and I love. And they're huge on building, the subculture or pop culture of crypto communities. And I personally resonate really strongly with that, just because of my background. What drives me, as I was saying in the beginning, is the strong belief that pop culture is more influential than people can imagine. If you think about different institutions that want to, spread these schools of thought on how to be in this world, it's really, pop culture plays such a huge role in that, just because people can absorb these ideas just through osmosis by passive consumption of pop culture, rather than the active, learning and being told or being given, these really structured ideas. And so I really believe that change happens quite often at the intersection of different subcultures, especially, and driven by the creative industries, so the arts, media, entertainment. And then there is Opolis DAO, which I really like. They came out of East Denver, and they call themselves the Work Commons, which is a DAO that organizes resources such as software subscriptions, healthcare benefits, and things like tax software, tax reporting software, payroll software, etc. if you receive crypto payroll. And a way for, I would say, DAO workers and freelancers to access kind of these familiar benefits that one needs to support themselves in the real world. And then social DAOs, I want to specifically talk about Seed Club. I think I mentioned last time that, or rather I will talk about a little bit later, social DAOs are a great way for information, to set up a funnel for you to add to your information, your knowledge network. And C Club is a great example of that. They're actually also an investor in T2, so I might be a bit biased, but fantastic community. They have Accelerator, a Vibe Squad, which again, acts as a curator for pop culture and subculture in crypto. And then of course they invest and mentor entrepreneurs. And media DAOs, again, I'll call out Global Coin Research, fantastic group, also investor at T2. They share research all across the board in the whole ecosystem. So these are kind of, and you can see, for example, investment DAOs replace your traditional VCs, grants DAOs replace nonprofits, collector DAOs replace, arts institutions and such, museums, galleries and such. So already this very robust looking landscape is unfolding, but of course every day it's growing. And last time I had talked about decentralized universities or decentralized scientific research, which is a huge trend this year. And I'm personally very excited to see where they go in the future. And I'm sure that soon we'll be adding a few more blocks related to that on this landscape.
It sounds wonderful, Sam. Sorry for interrupting. So you can go one step back, please, for a second. So you mentioned about subcultures and cultures. You also mentioned that there might be a replacement. So as you said, DAOs can be full-time employers, communities. So it can be a single person. There is no hierarchy that controls the organization. So do you think that DAO could be the one to replace a traditional corporate board? So you mentioned that there might be replacements, but in what terms?
Yeah, I think we should be careful with the word replacement. I know I had used that, and I mean it in a sense where it's a partial replacement, right? So, for example, some of new startups are exploring DAO models rather than traditional corporate models. Not choosing not to go through with an IPO, rather than growing their communities or through a community-driven DAOs. Through the DAOs in a community-driven way. So what that would look like is that eventually, as the whole economy grows, more of that new pieces of the economy will be organized by DAOs rather than corporations. And so gradually you kind of erode the power of corporations, which will be a fantastic thing to see, especially for internet companies. But certainly very soon we'll expand to other sectors as well. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Just wanted to make everyone a bit more at the same page. And these are wonderful examples. Thank you.
Great. So within the DAO, you can play different roles. I touched on this very lightly last week. So you could be a core contributor, working directly, building a project, building a DAO from the ground up, or working full time once the DAO has become more mature. And then bounty hunters collect bounties, I guess. And that's one term to call it, but you could call it a contractor, a freelancer, basically someone who comes and provides a service or a product to the DAO on a one-off or ad hoc or a part-time basis with very specific targets, with very specific scope. And then there are network contributors who are, probably experts in their own domains. For example, designers, writers, journalists, developers, etc., who contribute on a knowledge offering to help the DAO grow in very specific domains. And then just by being a token holder, for example, if you hold Uniswap tokens, you are contributing to the Uniswap DAO just by being a token holder. Similar to how if you hold shares to Apple, for example, you're contributing to Apple by giving them financial security and sending a market signal. Here's what I'm really excited to kind of go over. So in finding your role in DAOs, you really want to think about, as I mentioned, your personal circumstances. So, and the future of work really looks like this, right? This is a really good slice. I came up with all these fictional personas, but they could very well exist, and I'm sure that they do, in fact. So here we have anonymous number one, who is engineering lead at Google, so working full-time at a traditional corporation, but at the same time, they're a core contributor of a diversity investment DAO, right? And advises on 2 of the blockchain startups that came out of this investment DAO, and they live in London, which is day by day becoming a more attractive crypto hub. And then their second persona here is a UI UX bounty hunter from multiple social media DAOs, because they need that flexibility in their lives to have space for their dependents, right? To care for their dependents in their life. And they also write about product design with the income coming in from Substack and Patreon. So here's the Web2 aspect of that income. And they live in Kyoto. And then the third persona is someone who is a core contributor of a social DAO and simultaneously a climate DAO. So at the same time, they're core contributors to 2 DAOs. They're also a minority shareholder of a microbrewery and holds carbon neutral coins as part of their personal value alignment, and volunteers at a cat shelter and lives in Singapore. So if you see yourself, in one of these personas, partially or fully, that's great. So you probably already have a bit of an instinct about where you want to go and how you want to play to your strength, which is fantastic. So stick with that and in following in the next bit of the workshop. But if you don't already see yourself here, that's totally okay. So don't be afraid to explore. And when you explore, I like to talk about how I started in the industry, and which is basically a cold start, right? This is a personal cold start rather than a startup cold start. You can just dip your toe in a little bit. You start with what could be 30 minutes of daily commitment to just learn, right? So coming to this workshop, etc. And then you have a 2-hour, and then maybe that grows into 2-hour weekly commitment to, you maybe want to attend local meetups. I host the Oxford Blockchain Breakfast every Tuesday morning. And then maybe you want to do a little bit more in these community chats. So maybe your Discord channel or your Telegram groups for these projects that you're interested in learning about. You can do it, have a bit more participation there, or you can use that 2 hours to take a course, for example. And then maybe that eventually extends into taking a bounty or one contract. And then that becomes a long-term commitment for 4-hour, 5-hour, 10-hour weekly contracts. And then you go big or not, because you can always expand and pivot horizontally, right, within those different verticals. So this, I'm quite proud of this. So the 2-Hour Job Search is a fantastic book by Steve Dalton. It's basically the Bible for top business schools around the world. And I love it because it really redefined the idea of networking for me and destigmatized network for me. And it's definitely not just a job search book. So in the framework that I'm using today, I call it the 2-Hour Network Accelerator. And the reason that you want to focus on networking is because wherever you are in your current journey in getting into the space, people are everything, right? Whether you're an investor looking for tips, whether you're an entrepreneur looking for advisors or partners, or you're an experienced professional in some domain and you're looking to pivot into the metaverse or at some point in the future, perhaps. You're going to need to build that off of people, because every organization, a DAO, a corporate, a university, a local nonprofit, they're made up of people at the most basic unit level. And so no matter where you are, you can always benefit from having some friendly faces around. And just to give some stats from Steve's book, nearly 80% of jobs, so that's 79% of jobs, are actually filled through referrals. And the chance of you applying to a job online and then getting that job is actually 0.5%. And even though everybody wants to work for a large cap company. They're going to be the ones that receive the most online applicants. So really, it's going to be a needle in the haystack. But you can open through the processes that's going to be outlined here. You can expand your horizons a little bit. Your list of dream opportunities could substantially expand if you kind of stick to this discipline process. And so that might look like, exploring options at mid-tier companies, small businesses, young startups, and of course DAOs, like we have been going through. And I really think that you will be pleasantly surprised. I certainly was, and I have to say I follow this book religiously, but I've adapted it, as I mentioned, for Web3 and also for non-career search purposes. So I won't use today to get into the details of Steve's method, actually largely because it's impossible, because there's no way to simplify this book without actually reading the book. So the best way to actually get all of the ideas and all of the processes down is to read the book. But I will outline some of the logic that's used, and I've adapted that, as I mentioned, for the metaverse. So the first thing you want to do is make a list. I love lists for all sorts of things. And in this framework, the particular list you want to use is called a LAMP list. So you'll see more of that in the book. And LAMP stands for list, advocate, motivation, and posting. And I'll kind of go into that. So in your list, you're going to want to list your dream employers, and that's probably, for most people, is going to come down to a handful of 5, the top of the industry, so to speak. And as I mentioned, the chances of you getting a job there or finding an opportunity, an investment opportunity or startup opportunity in that affiliated bubble is probably going to be quite slim. And so this list should really expand to wherever you know someone, right? So if you have a distant family friend, a second cousin, someone you went to high school with, if they currently work in what you would consider the metaverse, and even if it's not something that you would be immediately interested in, put them on the list and be sure to reach out to them a little bit later. But add those people to your list. So wherever you already know somebody, have a connection, we call them an advocate. So you want to put that advocate in your list as well. And then you want to, so LAMP, you want to look at where there are postings available. So if there are currently DAOs that are you looking for contributors, T2 is looking for contributors. So feel free to connect with me on that. And also, for example, if Medium is hiring, you might, and that's kind of in your interest, you might want to pop that on the list. And then the last thing you want to do to fill out that list is to follow trends. So see what keywords are buzzing on Google, on Medium, on LinkedIn, and then look at the top people or organizations in that list, and then go and add them to your list. And then you want to prioritize that list based on wherever you have advocates already, how motivated you are to work for them based on a number of factors, and then whether they have active opportunities available. And then you want to contact these people. So, and this is really the key part, and probably the part that I hated the most before I actually followed through with this process. And I thought this is actually extremely rewarding, and I built so many valuable relationships out of that. So what contact looks like is just that. So you find contact information for advocates. So whether you already know somebody or you don't know anybody, and that's completely okay, you can cold email, and how you can get their contact information, that could come through, LinkedIn. I know a bunch of people added me on LinkedIn after last week's session, which is great. Please also do follow me on Twitter. I'm trying to build up a Twitter presence, and a little bit of activity there will be appreciated. And then in the metaverse in particular, you want to look at Discord and Telegram communities for different projects that you may be interested in. And then contacts could come through warm introductions from people you know, or alumni, or any professional club that you're associated with. They will have a database that you can go through. And then, of course, MKAI here has a fantastic network that you should definitely tap into. And
wonderful. So once we do our research, once we find our contacts, we can decide if we want to spare up to 5 hours per week and contribute, maybe join some conversations or communities. Or if we have, let's say, 5 to 10 hours or more hours, we can do a research and find a project and join. Is that what you're saying? So it's completely okay to reach out to completely person that we don't know, and to ask how we can start contributing if we find this really interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And as someone who's been in the industry for a while, it's completely normal to have requests like that. And here's how someone might respond to you when you do reach out. So once you know what to expect, you kind of normalize that, and then you can keep going with your process. So here's what you can expect. Some people will be what Steve calls curmudgeons. So these people are not going to respond to you because they're not interested in helping anybody. And that's completely okay. Don't take it personally. That's just who they are. No matter how good or how welcoming their profile looks, they are just not interested in helping people. So skip right through those people and don't give them another thought. And then there are the obligates, which are admittedly worse than curmudgeons. Excuse me. And the reason for that is because maybe you reached out to them from a LinkedIn group, or maybe you reached out to them from an alumni association, and they feel obligated to respond to you because of that affiliation, but they don't actually want to help you. So they'll just end up wasting your time and keep giving you mixed signals and rescheduling meetings, etc. So you want to avoid those people and cut your losses. Again, don't take it personally. And then there are the boosters. I do think that boosters you could recognize immediately, because they're full of energy. They want to tell you all about, they want to learn about what you do, and they want to tell you, they want to share everything that they have that could be possibly useful to you. Once you identify those people, you lock them in for a meeting or for some research, and you meet with them. So in that research, you want to prepare your questions in advance. And there's another framework called Tiara that Steve talks about. Excuse me. Steve talks about this framework called Tiara that you want to follow in obtaining the information that will be valuable for you at these meetings. And then the key part is to multiply that contact to multiple contacts. And then you can set up your information funnels in a way where you can feed that back to your original contacts. And that's how your knowledge network, and that's how your people's network can multiply on their own. And actually, once you have the funnel set up, which I'll go over on the next slide, all of this will feel very organic, much less intimidating once you have a few positive responses. Any negative responses, don't worry about it. It's not personal. So here is this funnel that I was talking about. This is my personal, what I've found to be personally most useful. You don't have to look too far and wide, especially if you're early in your journey. Your information, your knowledge for that's going to be relevant for the opportunities you're looking for is going to come from three sources. One are the communities. So communities like MKAI, communities like the DAOs that you may want to be involved with, or the projects, even if they're not DAOs yet, they will have a community of some sort, whether it's on Discord or Twitter or LinkedIn, wherever that may be. You want to find them and be immersed in them and receive information that way. And then there are news aggregators. Excuse me. News aggregators, for me, my favorite is newsletter subscriptions. And that you can separate into different verticals, or you can go on a wider horizontal. For me, I like to focus in wherever I'm at. So I'm tuned into the ecosystem here at Oxford and also back home in Vancouver. And then there are Telegram subscription channels. Twitter is an invaluable source of information, especially for the decentralized metaverse. And of course, speaking of Twitter, do follow me and T2 on Twitter, which I'll share the information in a short while, because I like to think that I share some valuable information from time to time. And then you want to keep going on professional development. So that's, coming to this workshop, coming to MKAI's other events, you go to community-based master classes. And here I want to give a special shout out to the Bigger Pie, which is a community started by Bridget. She started the Bigger Pie to create a more inclusive community for women, for marginalized genders in blockchain and Web3. And then the last bit of advice that I have for professional development is to find a mentor. And I have benefited from mentors my entire professional career, although that may have started a tiny bit late, but better late than never. And finding a mentor will help you gain perspective on what you're doing, a little bit of validation for you, which is always great. And then it's just nice to have that companionship and this trust-based relationship. And all of the information.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we have to find communities that we like. We can subscribe to certain newsletters that you mentioned, or some open source platforms where we can share knowledge, where we can find some specific information. Of course, mentors, like in every other business, which is terrific. Do you have some favorite platform that you would like to share that's related to newsletters, or something that we can just go and check and like, wow, this is a wonderful piece of information. I'd like to do further research on that.
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, I am tuned into all the Oxford ecosystem subscriptions. So that may not be applicable to everybody, but and then back home, I have my local tech newsletter, which is called the Vancouver Tech Journal. So I would suggest wherever you are at, because I do, even though we work in tech, I do want to encourage in real life interactions wherever possible. So find your local newsletters, because that will have information about meetups and things like casual coffee. And then in terms of newsletters that are industry specific, for Web3, my absolute favorite is The Defiant, which is a great paper. I think I mentioned also in the last session. I also, because of my, obviously my background in startups and my interest in venture capital, I subscribe to the Dove metric, which is, again, an startup investment news aggregator. And then Twitter is always great, but I guess my one tip for Twitter is also to create more than you produce. So produce more opinions, obviously, do research and be authentic in your opinions, and consume less, just a tiny bit less than you produce, because that will help you stay a little bit sane, because that place could get very chaotic.
Wonderful. Let's move on then.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is basically how I did it. You build your funnels, have your knowledge that's multiplying on top of each other, and then you feed that. The important thing is you feed it back into your network, and very soon you're going to find that you're going to be finding your own niche, and within that niche, you can see that you're gaining knowledge that could benefit people who helped you from the very beginning.
Hey, Sammy, let's get this back to Metaverse. Yeah, we've been on general job searching for a long time. This is a Metaverse workshop. Sorry for jumping in, but I need to get back on topic, okay?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Actually, this is a good call, Richard. This is actually the end of that. So the specific examples that we had gone through, in the beginning here are kind of really the framework applies to all of these different options, no matter it's large cap or DAOs or startups that you want to be in, no matter investment opportunities or your next job or a pivot for a future job that you want to keep on the back burner. All of that, again, starts with the information and the network. So yeah, this is that. That wraps up me for today. I think that leaves us with a few more minutes for questions. How are we doing for time?
Let's see. Yeah, do we have questions? Do you have specific questions about how to find opportunities in Metaverse, or if you are on a project or you have already joined some discussion, would you like to share your experience as well? Feel free to open your camera and microphone. Will, I see that you posted that you're in a blockchain development. Would you like would you like to share your experience if you have some, if you were on some projects related to Metaverse, or would like to share your experience? No.
Oh, hello. Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, no, I've only just started in blockchain development. I've been interested in it for quite a while. We just started working with a colleague on an automated liquidity pool bot for Uniswap, basically. So I mean, I haven't really got much more to add at the moment because I've literally just started the project, but we're just that's what I'm working on anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
No problem. So if anyone's interested, feel free to connect with me, and I could obviously talk you through what we're doing anyway.
Yeah, if you're okay with that, Sammy, let's stop the screen share so that we can see each other, so that we can have a quick discussion.
Great
If you're
idea.
okay with that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Will. Thank you, Will, for sharing your experience. Patricia, you mentioned in comments above that DAOs look good in general, but in the reality, a few companies have made the actual work. Do you have some examples? So would you like to tell something more about it? So we'd love to hear your opinion.
Oh, thank you. I think that for me, the problem I see is the gap between the theory and the reality. I think, it looks like great, this kind of duocracy where people really, not necessarily people that know more, but the people that can do things, they do them, but the reality is that other than agile teams, which are relatively small, and Professor Dunbar in the University of Cambridge has done a lot of work on the Dunbar number and our limitations as a people to have connections of more than 150 people to really do this, across geographies. Also, for example, I work for a corporation, and of course I rant about HR, but at least if there is misbehavior, I can go and talk to somebody. So I'm one, in a DAO where is voted and self-organized. I'm just curious how that will happen, in real life. And as I said, holacracy looks good, but very few companies really have made it work. After, like Zappos, they went very vocal about holacracy, and they have to just go back and said, it's just kind of almost. So I'm curious on real, if you've seen that working, let's say with groups of 300 people, 500, like corporations that have 17,000 people.
Yes, this is really interesting question. Sammy, would you like to pick this one?
Yeah, I think I understand the where that is coming from. It's a really good question, and honestly, the honest and authentic answer is that it's a work in progress, and that the people are in the industry are constantly innovating and coming up with tools to help facilitate resources between that many people. And in that process, I think what's going to happen is we're going to discover this balance, and that balance, between efficiency and overall like value accrual is going to look different from in a case-by-case basis, depending on the use case of the DAO, depending on the business logic. That number is going to be different. For some DAOs, it might be 10 people, 20 people. For some DAOs, maybe it could be 20,000 or 100,000 people, or millions of people, which is what a lot of DAOs are hoping, right? Especially the ones that ride on that social network effect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patricia, and thank you, Tammy. Patricia, do you have a sub question? Perhaps, is this clear enough? Feel free to say.
Oh, thank you very much. It's very, very, very interesting. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have Jerry, we have Trajan, Hopefully I pronounced your name right. Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I see that you turned on your camera. Would you like to share your insights with us about the metaverse? If you have some questions about business and career and metaverse, feel free to do
Yes,
so.
sure. I'm actually a very traditional entrepreneur where we are into manufacturing of terracotta and ceramic products. And I'm slowly taking initiatives to go digital and understand how to be a tech savvy entrepreneur. So, yeah. I think your webinar was pretty informative as to how to connect with different kind of markets and how to approach people and professionals. So yeah, that's about it.
Wonderful.
Great. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Richard, John, Deborah, Will, if you'd like to open your microphones, here is your last chance. We have 5 minutes on the clock. We start and finish on time. We also have Karin here, Julian, hopefully I pronounced your name right, Nemanja, Daniel. Do you have some more questions? I see Jerry had to go. Thank you, Jerry, for joining us. John, you shared your LinkedIn profile. Would you like to say more about your work? Would you like to connect regarding the metaverse opportunities, perhaps? No? Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thanks for sharing
so
your
have...
LinkedIn profiles. I'm very active on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, please feel free to connect with each other. And thank you, Richard. Richard mentioned in the comments, great session. Thanks all. And who went to the next call? Good luck with the next call.
I want to add something, if you allow me, please.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
So
yes,
I want to thank you, Sammy, because when we think about technology, we are always thinking about computers and algorithms and everything else. And we kind of forget the human side, and the humans are the ones who are building the technology. And you brought it so beautifully in this two-part workshop. So I want to thank you for bringing us this awareness and everything that is related to human also. So you remember us that we need, it's up to us to build something that it will be good for humanity, and it will be good for everyone. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I absolutely, I always say, you know, it's, you can choose to see and then you believe, or you can believe in it in order to see it. So I like to be the second, the former, or the latter of that. So thank you. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wonderful.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So, and many thanks for the great two-part course on business and career opportunities in Metaverse. We hope that you had a chance to gain great insights from Sammy, to learn something together and to start contributing. Hopefully, let's make these tiny steps towards success in future work and in everyone's career. So if you didn't have, and we'll also thanks Sammy from Will. Hi, here's Deborah. She mentioned new learning and great sessions. Why, it's wonderful. Hello, wonderful to see you. So, right.
Apologise, I'm in a very busy office today, so it's quite noisy. But thank you,
yeah,
thanks, Sammy. That was great, really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Deborah. Wonderful. 1 more minute, one last chance to answer your question, or maybe if you're more comfortable, ask it offline.
Yeah, and feel free, you know, connect with me offline to send any questions. I'm always happy to answer. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll stop the recording. Less than 1 minute to go. in a few. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, everyone.